perspective. And whenever I say spiritual, my frame of reference or my point of contact is always from a Christocentric perspective. And
Okay.
so right off the top, I go to Genesis when you ask the question as to where is the male figure in our family and the impact that it plays. Genesis, right around Genesis 3, chapter 3 through 6, is the fall of humanity. And right off the top, God asks the question, Adam, where are you? And it's a redundant question, because if God is all-knowing and omniscient, God already knows where Adam is. The question is, Adam was out of position and left vulnerable, and he didn't know where he was because he had lost that which was most precious to him between him and God, and that was a connected relationship. And because he was uncovered and vulnerable, he tried to hide himself behind a fig leaf that couldn't keep itself to keep him covered from all the elements that now he was open to, he was open game to. And so when we look at that particular text and we try to find a relationship between then and now, we see that oftentimes men have been left vulnerable, dealing with a multitude of different circumstances, challenges, and situations, and having the honor of serving some of the brothers at Ebenezer AME Church. We see a lot of different components, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different social, spiritual, mental, physical elements and characteristics of men. So you have the man who is present in his family, who is there working multiple jobs, but is absent emotionally, and therefore not engaged in the family dynamic or even involved in the life of his children. And that could be due to not because he doesn't care, it's because he cares too much and is overwhelmed by trying to be a provider. Especially in the current economic climate and the pressure that we as the family go through, trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? And so we find ourselves as men being overworked and undervalued and missing in action when we should be at some of those events. And then you have the brother who is going through a dynamic situation where he wants to be present, but because of the break in relationship between him and the mother or the family dynamic, he doesn't have access. But it doesn't keep him from caring. The one thing that I will say that's consistent, no matter if you're in the pews or if you on the street corner, if you hustling in corporate America, or if you hustling on the corner, is that men, especially black men, we love our children. And in particularly our sons. And if given the opportunity to show up and participate and be a part of, we will choose that almost every single time, unless there is a particular dynamic that we find ourselves having to struggle and deal with that we don't want to pass on. And so we tend to kind of become isolated. And then you have that brother who is involved in his family's life, involved in his kids' life, showing up every day, trying to be everything for everybody, who then gets burnt out.
That's good.
He gets burnt out, and because he's not taking care of himself the way he should, he finds himself running into a whole bunch of health issues, and then in some cases, his mortality rate goes below the norm and the average.
Okay.
And we don't find that we have access to real good health care for black men. Not just in this area, but probably across this nation. There are not a lot of programs designed around healing or proactively healing and allowing black men to seek services that are more preventive from dysfunctional disease or pathological ailments that are handed down, versus waiting until we get sick and then we finding out that it's too late. Too late.
Now, let me have you pause just for a quick second, because that was very profound what you said when you talked about the man being burnt out. So I know, for women, we have outlets. We talk. Okay, we put it out there. When something's going on with us, somebody gonna hear it. Whether it's that man or one of our friends, or somebody's going to hear it. But for men, it's different. So you talked about a lot of different things. You talked about isolation. When you all process things within, then you begin to isolate from your environment. You know, how important is it for men to get mental health? Because you talked about the importance of professional, health, but why is it that men won't seek mental health services to prevent them from getting burnt out, and particularly in the Black community?
Well, first and foremost, I think that health issues are health issues, whether it's mental, spiritual, or physical. But it is such a dynamic where we don't want to admit that we are struggling with stress, or struggling with mental challenges. It's frowned down upon and it's considered to be a weakness. And so for the first thing, men need to find a safe and trusted place. Where if you can't find professional help, you can find a group of men or brothers that are trusted. In Ebenezer, we go by the code when we hold men's Bible study, or we get together, whatever is said in the room stays in the room, because we need to make sure we create a trusted space for men to be transparent. And that's the key. As men, we don't trust too many people. And so when we find ourselves going through some things, we become more isolated than we do connected. And it's the reverse for women. They seek more connection than they do isolation, and they know how to go get that self-help. For us, it's a little more difficult because of our pride, our ego, our status, our economic climate, or where we are socially. And so we lean to those things that bring us quick and easy comforts, is why you find a lot of brothers struggling with behavioral issues. One of the things that we share in our group is we talk about spiritual development and maturation as behavioral transformation. And behavioral transformation, what we're saying is that if we can change the way we think, we can change our behavior. And when we can change our behavior, we can have an impact on our own life. And we can impact our own life, then other things will get in order. We'll get into position. Because it's not about what we're saying, it's more about what we are doing.
That's right.
What we're doing. And so while we can preach a great sermon, we can have a brother who can live out loud a sermon even better than anything that myself or any pastor could preach, because he's not experiencing a disconnect between what he says and what he does.
That's good. That's good. That's important, because I think, last week we talked about, and Mr. Grimes, please chime in. We talked about last week the what happens. There's this total disrespect towards the male's position, and we talked about the movement of independence for women. And us making as much money as a man, being able to take care of our own selves and things like that. And so as a result, because we feel like, or in some cases men are not living up to, as you put it, connecting the doing to their words, then there's a lack of respect that takes place. And that lack of respect is more devastating than anything, because what happens is when the woman begins to lose respect for the man, then we begin to castrate him, or we begin to tear down who he is as a person. So in the process of us, which most people might refer to as nagging, what happens is that when he begins to go internally and go into that place of isolation, he loses his voice and he loses his identity, especially in the home, if the woman is overbearing or overpowering. And so then we see the dynamics of the family breaking apart because of that. How does a man recover from that? Even though he has this woman, because what's happening, you talked about at the fall, the man being out of place. Well, when he became out of place, so did the woman.
That's right.
So right now, what we are seeing full force, full pledge, is everybody's out of position. So the woman is trying to be the man. The man, some men, they give in, but then some men, they just get tired in the struggle. Then you have some men who just like, I'm not dealing with this. You know what I'm saying? And so there has to be a balance in trying to heal the man and trying to heal the woman, because she needs to be put back in her place too. And so how does a man recover, if he's still in the home, if it hasn't gotten to that point where the home has broken or fallen apart because of the dominance of the woman being out of place and the man feeling like he's lost his identity and lost his voice?
Wow. You said a whole lot in a little bit of a nutshell. And the importance of that is that when a man is in a position where he no longer is feeling affirmed, where he's no longer being uplifted or spoken well into his life emotionally and spiritually, then that causes us also to have a disconnect. Now, the other dynamic to that is that there is a social, a sociological perspective to this, right? That our current pop culture is redefining the family boundaries and the lines of how men and women interact, and in particularly in our particular community, the Black African American community, where it seems as though they want Black men to be more passive and the Black female to be more aggressive, because an aggressive, well, not the word aggressive might be the wrong term, but an assertive, a Black male figure, as we can see now, somewhat poses a threat in the current nomenclature, the current social atmosphere, and we can see that by the attack not only on Black men but on Black male youth. All you have to do is be, look a particular way and look like you're confident about yourself, and you're being questioned about your stature or status. But if you find yourself becoming more docile and passive, then the current dominant structure tends to want to deal with you because you don't challenge the status quo. You don't challenge the status quo. So you're navigating a couple of different estuaries, a couple of different streams. The spiritual stream, where we're trying to put things in order. And I think in that redefinition of our current climate, when we say that the man is the head, the male is the head, it doesn't mean that the female is subjugated or put under. It just means that that's a sense of order coming together. So because I can't do it without you and you can't do it without me. And so we need to do it together so that our family can be productive in moving forward, positively and having a tremendous impact. So while we have a lot of different perspectives on our faith traditions, there's one thing we all can acclaim, that there's something sinister and evil on the planet with us. Right? I just think that for myself and the brothers that I'm connected with, on an intimate level, that our faith tradition is, we believe in the presence of God manifested through Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. And so we lean on that. But all three of the major faith traditions all share in common that original text belief in the Old Testament. Is we just separate it when it comes to who we believe is Messiah. However, when we get past our differences, we'll see that we have more in common. As our family structures, we all seek the same thing. And so it's not that we want to diminish the sisters, or the sisters should even feel diminished. Her place is prominent in the family structure. It's just that when she gets involved and takes what appears to be a weakness in her mate, and see that there's a challenge, she just might be better at it, and she needs to affirm him that he still is a part of the decision-making process. And I tell some of the sisters who come to me talking about, well, he doing this, Ram, I said, well, hold up, time out. Take a look at what your role is in that, and also let me teach you how to talk to Superman so you can stop speaking and dealing with Clark Kent. Because Clark Kent is passive-aggressive. Clark Kent will kind of, but when you talk to Superman, he shows up
Every time.
single time. And so how do you begin as a sister to talk to Superman to get the balance? You begin to affirm your man. Instead of putting him down and saying what he's not doing, just begin to say, wow, look what you just did. I just want to say thank you so very much for taking time out to take the trash out, for even being involved in talking to us as a family, for preparing the meal, for getting up early enough to make sure that the kids get off. Because as you know, as a mother of a family, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And so I want to just pause and say thank God for my wife.
I know that's right.
You know, the superwoman in our family. In our family. And so I appreciate her because she does pause for a moment and she sees the weight that of the world. And I try, as men, we try not to show our women that. You know, we try to say, oh, we can shake it off. But on the inside, we really, you know, are struggling and battling and wrestling with some major issues and challenges, whether at work, whether, you know, on our jobs, even in our dynamics with some of our friends and trying to compare ourselves to each other. And I think what happens is that we can't compare ourselves. We have to understand how to be who we are right where we are for the time we're there. And while the theory of evolution as it relates to development of species might be off, we still evolve emotionally, spiritually, as human beings.
Right.
And we need to bring more love into the mix of our relationships and learning how to be intimate with one another. Intimate and sex are two different words.
Things.
Intimacy means that I'm connected to you and I give you consideration.